So in data link layer, as we mentioned, is the layer that's residing just above the physical layer. We call it layer 2. And its main functionality is listed as below. 4 points: framing, physical addressing, flow control, error control, access control. Now let's start with framing. Framing, what's framing? The data link layer needs to back bits into frames so that each frame is distinguishable from another frame. Outpostal system practices a type of framing. The simple act of inserting a letter into an envelope separates one piece of information from another. The envelope in this case serves as the delimiter. So this is what framing means. Framing means you are putting addresses, you are labeling them so that you can distinguish them and the carrier know where to send them. Needs to pack bits into frame. You pack them, you prepare them to be transmitted, and you have to be careful about the size of each frame, how many bits each frame should take, and how you and if there are any problems related to errors, how to handle them, and so on and so forth. This is example of how these things are happening in the computer network. So what about physical addressing? Physical addressing, as the name implies, is you give MAC addresses here, which you place them in the header. A frame is the encapsulation of the header and the trailer information with the packet. In the header, the source and destination MAC addresses are dealt with. This is physical addressing. You add the MAC address of the source and destination together at the beginning. Flow control, what's the flow control here? Flow control is one of the duties of a data link control sublayer. The flow control in the data link layer is an end-to-end control process. It's responsible for speed matching mechanism and mainly coordinates the amount of data that can be sent before receiving an acknowledgement. So this is the job of flow control. When you hear the word flow control, it means that the responsibility of this functionality is to coordinate how much data you can transfer over this link. Why this is important? Suppose your port can accept up to 1 gigabit per second, but your node is communicating with 10 gigabit per second. Your port will saturate, will not be able to receive or decode data anymore, because you are transmitting with a speed much faster than what I can receive. This is why flow control is important. It needs to check the ports, check the devices, see their capabilities, how much they can handle, and adjust according to that. Access control, media access control. So in access control, you have two functionality. You have mainly error control, which can be divided into two parts: error detection and error correction. Error detection can be done using something called cyclic redundancy check, CRC. This CRC is added to the trailer of the packet at the end of the packet. And the job of this is to detect if there is any error in the frame or not. If there is an error, there is another functionality called error correction. Correct this error via a method called error correcting codes. Example of these codes, we have convolutional codes, we have turbo codes, LDBC codes, Polar codes, convolutional codes, and many others. But the most common ones, for example, in Wi-Fi, what types of codes we use? In Wi-Fi, we use LDBC codes. In 4G network, what types of codes we use? We use turbo codes. These are the codes that help us correct the errors. In 5G, what types of codes we use? We use two types, one for control, one for data. For control, we use Polar codes. For data, we use LDBC codes. So these are the things that we usually care about at this layer, the access control. The access control is media access control, coordinating the access of different nodes, but error control is responsible for detecting and correcting. Detecting happens via a process called CRC, and correcting happens via a process called ECC, And there are several examples of codes that can be used in order to protect your data from noise. So these are the main functionalities of a MAC layer and what their meaning is.